This is your review for test number two. Some of these we haven't really talked about much. Some were involved in your daily assignments, those short write-ups, paragraphs. So some of these I'll cover a little bit more. The first one is dealing with the chapter with magazines. Talking about the altering of images within magazines has become a heated controversy. What's your take on the altering of photographs? Do you think this is an appropriate practice? Do you agree or disagree with the digitizing our view of reality? Traditionally, just remember when I'm talking about this that we're really talking about how they change or alter models for the cover, both in editorial content and in advertising. The fact that when they put a picture of an actor or an actress in there, they reduce blemishes, they lengthen the neck. So we're mostly talking about how this works with the altering of the human body, or the way a person looks, or the way a person, the shape of the person, and how that is a controversy, and what's the potential harm of something like that. That's what we mean by digitizing our view of reality, basically never being able to really trust an image as being what it's supposed to be. Primarily, though, we're talking about the alterations of individuals, either to make them, predominantly to make them look more attractive and much healthier. Um, Now, on the second one, too much of the negative impact. When we're talking about cultural critics, I am not talking about film critics. This is cultural critics. And what they're talking about, the potential negative impact of blockbuster mentality to contemporary movie making. We're thinking about something like with the Marvel Universe, or any of basically, given the Fast and the Furious franchising films, where they're going for the one big film, putting a lot of money into it, but they want to be absolutely certain they're going to make enough money at it. Now, this question is kind of starting to feel a little more dated because of recently with COVID, they've really focused on streaming more. So, cutting down on the cost of production, they're able to produce a lot more uh, films that are not based in the big dynamic action sequences, but based more on script and some of those things. So, is it fine? The blockbuster mentality, some people like it as long as people are getting the kind of films, and if people are buying those tickets, well, that's fine. Or does it really restrict the kind of art that's being created? So all of that is what you're looking for, is how is that mentality, that idea of creating the one big film to reach as many people as possible, as opposed to the, 5 to 10 to $20 million film that's, maybe going to make a slight uh, profit, but not necessarily make those big numbers. So, how does that affect the overall art that's being created? Now, when we're talking about shock jocks, this is one we didn't really talk about that much. And so I'm saying Alex Jones in here, and you can look up the Alex Jones controversy. And it does a lot to do when this was first kind of drawn out. We're talking about, the conspiracy theorists and those types of folks who are kind of creating these, you know, ideas, and release them, and just trying to get as many people to listen by saying whatever they needed to say it. So that's what I'm talking about with shock jocks. And of course, we go back to, where there's always going to be that concept of, well, you have freedom of speech. And now these for profit companies, or private companies like Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, have banned some of these folks from their accounts, but they're private, they're not public. So they can restrict what kind of speech they want on there. Also, the FCC, Federal Communications Commission, restricts speech too. But you're talking about, this actually speaks very much to what we're saying. Is it ultimately more harmful to have very prominent figures here saying and coming up with these, and it's not just insulting things anymore, but it's these things about the lack of reliable factual information, and these theories and conspiracies, which have kind of brought us to where we're at now. So you could really match this question to what we've been seeing in the last 4 years, in the last several months. So when it comes to these conspiracy theories and what are the effects, so we're talking about it very much in the idea of, unchecked, unreferenced ideas and thoughts and accusations that are being put out there, and how the public's consuming them. And social media is one of the primary culprits of it, but there's always, you can find Alex Jones and again, I use him as an example, but you can look up some of the controversy around him and the Sandy Hook shooting and the lawsuit he's embroiled in and has been embroiled in. But not just that, but other conspiracy theories and people who are producing that kind of content. Now, this we have talked about a lot because we've talked about it inside some of the response videos. So it's going to be kind of along the lines of, you know, is a journalistic standards, what do we expect from anchors? Well, I'm not just saying news anchors that we see on television, but we're talking about entertainment people like John Oliver and some of those folks on Fox News, and either with comedy shows or with news opinion shows. All of those have the same attempt to try to be entertaining for their particular audience. So a lot of what we have talked about here, what I'm expecting here, you should have already covered somewhat in your responses to the videos that you guys have put forward. So I'll have this posted on announcements. Those are the 4 questions we're going to be covering. And if you have any questions, write a question in the response on announcements under the video, and I will get to that as soon as I can. The test is not due to be completed until March 15th.